all popped up out of nowhere like 100 Jack-in-the-Boxes at once. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. Happy Friday night. I'm Deanna. It is great to see you. I'm glad that this is working out. Let me get my screen back in place because I have such a good show for you. I was just getting into that super misery place where I'm like, wow, I have such a good show for tonight. And is it really not going to work? Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. It is great to see you. Apparently, it is going to work. Isn't it nice when things work themselves out? Isn't it nice when a problem just goes away? The thing is, I don't know why it happened in the first place. So that's always the scary part. Melissa, it is great to see you. Good evening. Nice to be with you. You are rightfully excited for this book because this is the best new book that's come along in a really long time. I know I have two books that came out, but I prefer this. I love Louise's book. It is amazing. You can see I have behind me on the screen a close-up. I'm getting better at this technology thing. Well, not exactly. Um, I don't think that was me. I just have to say, I don't think that was me. That was like the internet gods doing something insane, also with the volume. So this is the book that we're looking at today, My Rag Rug Life by Louisa Creed. And I have it on the screen behind me because I thought that might be helpful if you're looking at it. I'm going to finish my hellos, but this was published by Rylett Press, Rylett. So Rylett Press has a few books. They are all beautiful. I got this one for Christmas with a couple of the others that they offer. Not this is the ragrogging book. The others were like painting and things like that. But so beautiful. What a great small press. Now, I spoke to Louisa today, and she said that if there's any issue on the website, because that is where you get the books, if there is any issue, if you watch the show and you think, my God, I can't live without this book, I know you're going to have that exact response. If for some reason she said it looks like the books are sold out, I put the email. I think it's Jamie Gillum one at Gmail. You'll see it's in the body, the description of this video that you're watching now. If you have any problem, and I'll remind you at the end of the show, you can email him. He is the publisher. So I just want you to know while I'm doing the show, this is the cover of the book. It is Rylett Press, and I'll remind you at the end of the show where you can get the book. So let's keep going with these hellos. Pamela, great to see you. Oh, this is such kind of a hidden gem of a book. It's hard to find. It popped up somewhere for me. I'm not sure where. I do spend a lot of time ferreting for books because books are my favorite. I always want to get the newest books and the oldest books on rug making, not just rug hooking. And I forget where this popped up for me, but I found it right before Christmas. And like while I was on the Rylett Press website looking for the book, my sister wrote and said, do you have any ideas for Christmas? And I said, I would love all of the books that Rylett Press makes, but definitely Louisa Creed's. So I got it for Christmas, and this is like out of all the great things I got, and I got lots of nice things. This is my favorite thing I got. Things like this, books that you absolutely fall in love with are sounds like a cliche, but the gift that keeps on giving, because you know you can just come to them again and again and again uh, for more fun, right? So this is going to be one of those books for sure. April, it's great to see you. Happy cocktail time in Illinois. I've just got water today. I'm trying to stay sharp so I can do the good thing. I was sharp because of this whole technology thing, but I want to stay sharp and do a really good job tonight with this book. Mom, great to see you. Happy cocktail time. Worked on your taxes most of the day. Want, want. So nice martini is in order for sure. And a visit with you. Oh, I'm so glad that you're there. Good to see you, Kaz. Great to see you. Happy cocktail time. And Robin, both my buddies in Wisconsin. Becky, great to see you. Good evening in Indiana. Happy to be with you too. Paula, good evening with sunny and chilly winds in Southern California. It is wild out there this year, isn't it? Karen, good to see you from Black Forest, Colorado. About to pour some Pinot Grigio. You're not having your maker's mark tonight. And good to see you in Florida, my love. Happy Friday night. Linda H. Cheers, my dears, in Massachusetts. Ryan LeBeau, happy Friday from sunny and warm North Texas. Hard seltzer tonight. Pausing the after work dance party to tune in. Oh, that sounds like fun too. Peace and love to you too, Pamela. I'm just catching up on your chatting with each other. Linda, great to see you. Howdy in Jersey. Cheers, my dears. Melanie, great to see you. Happy Friday. And Sharon in Vancouver, happy Friday. Cheers, my dears. And great to see you. Hope you are not near the terrible fire. No, Ryan, you'll tell us if you're near the fire, right? There have been like natural disasters all over the country this week, and we keep hearing that our buddies who tune in are not involved. Always good news, right? Mom, yes, April, I'm starting to. Okay, and Judy says, all right, just catching up on the thread. Hang on. During all that turmoil, you were chatting. I don't want to miss anything great. Dave, hi, everybody. Hard cider and barbecue chicken to celebrate cocktail night. Cheers, my dears. Cheers, my dears. And Deborah, great to see you. Good evening in sunny Emin is Minnesota, right? Good to see you. Um, I forget what we were talking about. Oh yeah, it was that thing, that sort of big problem on our Facebook page this morning. We won't start that. You know what I will say? I said I wouldn't start that, but you know what I will say? While I am, I'm not a copyright fanatic, and I'm not one of these brands that's like, ooh, that's very close to my design. My pants are all twisted up now. I'm not one of those people at all. But I will say, when we see a rug hooked, I'm being very abstract and careful, that is exactly like another rug that we know and love, there's going to be a problem. So it was one of those this morning. I think the problem is resolved. I hope that the problem is resolved. We can see you working fine. Excellent. All good. All right. Good, good, good. Did you see, I'm just curious, did you see me come on like a phantom, a tragic technological phantom? Did you see me come on and then disappear again? I'm just wondering, because I logged on multiple times. Wendy, you can see me. Great to see you. All right, everybody. Great to see you. Mariah, hello in Prince Edward Island. Great to see you. Welcome. Olivia, good to see you. Happy Friday night. And Lisa, Kathy, TGIF, always. Catherine, great to see you in sunny California. All right, Gail Smith logging on in Australia. Great to see you. All resolved. Okay, very good. Well, happy Friday night, everybody. Let me take one more sip of my drink here. Looks like straight vodka. Might be straight vodka later. Okay, how to preface a night like this? We see a lot of books and we look at a lot of books, but honest to God, this is like one of my favorite things of all time. This is a huge book, right? So we're looking at a small part of it. There's not just a ton of pictures in this book, rugs that you've likely seen one or two of these, but not 136 pages worth, right? And with these rugs that I think will, particularly for American people, be quite new and exciting. With that comes a lot of text that is really personal, funny, helpful, filled with tips. It's absolutely a beautiful book. I can't say it enough. All of the little touches too, like there's a great flap at the beginning and end. Don't you love these, that you can use them as the bookmark? You kind of tuck them into the page where you're about to fall asleep. But this one also has, I wish my books had this. This is absolutely beautiful. This plate here in this like Vaseline envelope that has a book plate that's signed. I mean, isn't that something? It's just a beautiful quality book. Now, Louisa is known for her cats. That's one of the many ways that she's known. I don't know if you remember, it was quite a long time ago, we looked at the, I think it was a 1980s era, Emma Tennant book, another British ragrugger. And she included at least one of Louisa's cats. We looked at it a couple of years ago, that book, and we loved it. We fell in love with it. So we talked about Louisa then. We don't talk about Louisa enough, right? She has had a lifetime of hooking that is really so unique, so particular. And the content that you're about to see tonight, I ordered the book, no problem, on the website. It's on the way. Oh, that was fast, Deborah. Great job. Thank you for that great info. The content that you're about to see tonight is going to remind you and really validate for everybody, including beginners, that ragrugging is about confidence. It's about flying by the seat of your pants. It's about figuring it out as you go. Not for everybody. For very technical people, it's about learning. It's about having a teacher. It's about honing your skills, perfecting your skills, improving as you go, marking your visual improvement, according to your own sort of timeline for yourself. But people who are more creative, it's like, give me a hook, give me something to hook it into. Will the loop stay? Good, they'll stay. Let's keep going. And this book, Louisa's book and her style of working, is very much in the style of the earliest rug hookers, like the 19th century rug hookers, who are just finding backing fabric in an old potato sack and finding a hook or bending a nail, literally, and pulling up loops of ripped up fabric, right, until you have a picture evolving. And those would be utilitarian rugs. These are rugs for the wall, right? This is art, but people make both. People make both, right? So Louisa's style is definitely that more primitive, folky, rootsy style. And that style, it's my personal favorite, but it's a style that we've gotten very far away of. And many of us now are working in this seat of the pants style again, where you just cut up bits around you, collect as many colors as you can, and just go for it, right? So let's get started because there's so much of this that I want to show you. And I will be doing a lot of flipping quickly through slides. This is a picture of Louisa at the beginning of the book. So I wanted to be sure to share this because it's nice to have a visual of the person who we're talking about, right? Oh, Diane, great to see you. Just started. I had some issues logging on tonight because she just looks like a lovely person, doesn't she? Looks like she has a hat, kind of a knitted tea cozy over the teapot, about to have tea in a nice sort of friendly environment with some folders, maybe with some notes or collected rugs, right? Some inspiration. So just remember, right? Just remember the image of her because she is the real host of the night. I'm just flipping through the book. Now, the book is filled with close-ups like this that just are delicious for any rug hooker. When I look at stuff like this, it's like looking through a microscope, right, at the craft. And particularly with people who have a more sort of wild, untethered kind of a style, like traditional hookers. And just in this clip of loops that we're looking at alone, you're seeing a lot of different fibers. You're seeing full blast sweaters, those big cushy loops. You're already in love. Texture, Kirsten says. Yeah, I mean, it's the best. It's the best. I love seeing the cross section of the loops where you cut them coming up like little swirls like on a tree that's been cut down, just like one last expression, little curly Q circle, and this collection of materials. And I'm about to say very few of them are solid. I think none of them are solid. It looks like there's some cut up shirts or lightweight knits, heavyweight knit, lots of patterning. And this just serves to show, whatever you've got, right? And you just did sweater weather not that long ago, cutting up pieces of sweater. Whatever you've got handy, might as well put it together, synthesize, as Louisa Creed would say, paint with your materials, paint with fiber. And I don't know what we're going to pull out to see this as. This is just a close-up for the end papers. Karen says the curlies look like mini quillies. They do. They're good old swirls in there, little old cinnamon buns in there. But this kind of nice texture shot is something that you find as soon as you open the book. There in this book is dedicated to Lewis, and Lewis was Louisa's husband, who was also a hooker, and we'll hear about that in just a second. So we have an absolutely beautiful foreword that is written by Mark. Let me see. Hang on one second. Mark Hurld, like Harold, but the A before the R. Hurld. It's a beautiful personal foreword about knowing Louisa, knowing her rugs. He mentions in the foreword that he has at least one of her rugs up on his walls, and he loves coming in and being greeted by the image of this stunning rug. He obviously knows her personally and goes over to her house on this particular day that the foreword is written to talk about her work in specific pieces. And he says he comes in with the expectation of discussing a different work called Winter, but she's working on this, and this is actually spring. This rug dates to spring of 2022, so you see how much of a new book this is. And he was completely taken in by this composition, which at the time only had, he said, 2 blank patches of Hessian, which for us is burlap in the U.S., remaining to do. So beautiful, beautiful forward. And, you know, he talks a little, because he knows her personally, he talks a little bit about her style, her technique. And for example, he says, I'm going to do a couple of little excerpts. I'm not going to read you most of this because I hope that you will want the book. It is well worth adding to your library. I know you've got to ship it from England if you're not. I know some of our viewers are in England, but if you're in the US or Canada, I know it's a pain in the butt to have to pay money to the mailman to do these crazy shipping fees. But God, is this book worth it, right? So in the forward, Mark says, Louisa is always keen to stress, and this is a tip, right? This is a takeaway, so get ready to absorb. Louisa is always keen to stress that several close tone colors side by side make for a richer, livelier effect. It's all about the thrill of the chase, the search for color. Charity shops are of the greatest importance, overtaking the now rare jumble sale, like a yard sale, as the main source of raw materials. Used jumpers, meaning sweaters, which when filleted, find their way into color-coded pigeonholes in Lewis's study, on hand for every rag rug project. That's an interesting thing to think about, just stuffing things by color into pigeonholes. I'm thinking of like the shoe racks and things like that that I've thrown out. It's a very clever idea. Becky, you ordered one too. Great. And Karen, you ordered one. Fantastic. So great little tips like that. He also says it's exciting that now is the moment Louisa has chosen to share her rag rug life with us in a new book which celebrates over 30 years of making. It playfully introduces us to a clouder of delightful cats, seasons and monuments, snow-covered cottages, and views across the park, to the peak of Mount Fuji emerging through the clouds, and to the majestic gaze of a tiger. From an armadillo made by her cousin Dinak's clothes, night owls and geese, abstract interplanetary visions, shell ducks, and hot suns, the pages reveal half a lifetime's worth of creativity. And he goes on to say, she is by nature an organized person, and almost all of the 200 plus rugs that she has made have been carefully photographed and filed neatly in folders. Her days have been spent quietly reminiscing about particular rugs and their stories from her spot on the sofa, which looks out over the river to the bare trees beyond. She has not worked in splendid isolation. The process has been a collaborative one, and friendship has been vital. And it does say in this book the different groups. She's in York, or based near York, the city of York. The various friend groups that she joined, that beginning in the 1980s with a sort of revival of rag rug making. Lots of groups popped up, and she was a joiner. So she is a social person, and she has enjoyed making rugs as a social sort of occupation. Not least of which were the hours that she spent making rugs with her husband Lewis. I think that's my next. Yep, it is. So this piece is called Lewis and Louisa Making Rugs 1999. This piece is 42 by 54 inches. And this is at the Whitworth at the University of Manchester. Oh, that's good to know. She wrote, somebody asked me why I had given Lewis wings. For all his qualities, Lewis wasn't as angelic as all that. What was mistaken for a wing was really the air of the chair, like, you know, the ear of the chair. Where we sat working on our rugs and his rugs. So this is the introduction. I'm going to read you bits and pieces of it because I think it's fantastic. And I'm cutting 3/4 of it. I'm just doing bits and pieces. So I saw a rag rug in a museum. This started me thinking, are these being made? Are these still being made, or have they died out with the advent of central heating and wall-to-wall carpeting? Here, let me come back to you for a minute, and then I'll flip back. Assuming the latter, and that they had belonged to a different time, I went home and collected together a length of hessian, a hook, and some of my husband's shirts. I began to experiment. We're going to hear more on that later. That was 1988. Until this date, my occupation had been playing the flute. Now I had two obsessions, which ran along side by side for 30 years. I was equally driven by both: the colors of sound and the sound of colors, the flute by day and the rugging in the evenings. Meanwhile, Lewis was busy running St. Sampson's Center, an over 60s day center in York. He loved the sound of the flute and attended nearly all my concerts. He put up with endless practicing even after his retirement and respected my dislike of being interrupted. Lewis was intrigued by my enthusiasm for rag rugs and watched with interest as I began to produce them over a period of 10 years. I suspected that he would take to the craft himself eventually, but said nothing, knowing that the urge had to come entirely from him. He tried one or two small squares, but unsuccessfully. Then the day came when he embarked on a larger rug. Let's come back over here. A blue owl. He can be seen working on this in my rug of the two of us working together. It's this image here. While I am engaged on a marmalade cat. From time to time, Lewis, like me, always had a rug from then on. Lewis, like me, always had a rug on the go. He made over 200 rugs. After a while, we began to exhibit, take workshops, give talks together, and of course, this made the activity doubly enjoyable for me. Lewis's rag rugs complemented mine, and our styles are very different. His have a certain cartoon quality and always elicit smiles. So let me show you one of his over here. Hang on. So this is one of Lewis's. This is Tamworth 2 from 2004. The term rag rugs is rather, I love this paragraph that's coming at you. The term rag rugs is rather out of date, as the craft has developed generally into an art form. Although still made for the floor, they are now mainly made and used as wall hangings. I regard my own paintings in rags for the wall, but I still stick to the traditional name of rag rugs. There are several different techniques, which more adventurous makers continue to explore, using different tools, but Lewis and I always stuck to the hookies, a method which entails hooking up ribbons of cut-up clothing from underneath the hessian in loops, thus building up a fabric on the upper surface. Let me come back to you here. Lewis's piece is adorable, isn't it? And then she talks about how she sourced materials at the beginning, how she would store them. And here she says herself, for me, the secret of a lively rug is to use many close-toned shades. So, if I am, for instance, working on a blue sky, and we're going to see examples of this, so we'll point it out again. If I am, for instance, working on a blue sky, I will get armfuls of blue from the store and cut strips from all of them, tying them into bundles and working from these. So she's not working from solid colors. She's putting together bundles with lots of different shades of the color, right? So she's got a bunch of them handy all at once. This is key. You're going to see this in her work as we go along. And she says many and I'm really cutting up the introduction, right? There's a lot for you to read is my point when your books arrive. Many rag rug makers use frames, stretching the hessian over them so that the tension is provided, and this makes the work quicker and easier. However, I have always preferred to drape the rug I am working on over my lap, as I found a frame takes up too much of the room, and a rolled up rug in progress is a lot more portable. Also, it is not possible to see the whole rug at once when it is on a frame, and this to me is a big disadvantage. So this is so interesting. You know, we've had this conversation when we talk about people like Claire Murray, who also works on her lap. There are a lot of people who have been prolific and important rug artists who don't use frames at all or hoops and prefer to work on their laps. And this is interesting because obviously we all are good people and we always respect each other's way of working, but it's really good to hear the reason, because that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And she goes on to say, although it is quite possible to make rugs with a great deal of detail, and many do, I prefer to work on large open expanses, just enjoying the mixing of colors. Many rag makers cut their strips so much more finely than I do and pay much more attention to detail. We each settle upon a certain way of hooking. Some pull their loops up high, others work very loosely or finely like embroidery. I settled early on a solidly close and thick cut rugged style. Once you find your own way, it is difficult to change because the way you have found makes the effect that you like the best, right? So you're already in love with this woman, right? She really understands, right, all the subtleties and the nuances of hooking. This is not a person who's going to pull your loops out for you and tell you what you did wrong, right? She's saying you're going to find your own way. Once you get going, you're going to figure out your own way, and it's going to be the right way for you, right? Because it's the way that you have naturally evolved. What a wise lady. Exactly, Kathy. Oh, hey, Joey, good to see you. Um, I'm looking for parts and saving a lot for you to read. Usually, I display my most recent rug in a specially designated space. I like to make friends with it before I sell it, give it away, or roll it up and put it on a shelf in my wardrobe. My visitors, too, are always interested to see the latest creation, and I like to observe their reactions. Before I can do this, I have the irksome task of sewing a strip of Velcro onto the back, which I then attach to a batten, which is like a piece of wood that you can screw on the sides that attaches to the wall. Maybe we have that word here, but I don't hear it that much in the U.S. Attach a batten prepared for the purpose with a corresponding strip. Screw eyes are added to the top surface of the battens, and finally a string. It is a fairly crude method of hanging, but I reason that recipients can easily change it if they want to. The battens are rather special. As Lewis, who had a gift for pyrography, which is, it's that craft of using like what looks like a screwdriver tip and heat like a soldering iron to burn into wood pictures and words and stuff. You know what I mean? Lewis, who had a gift for pyrography, always burnt onto them the maker, titles, dimensions, and dates. This seemed to complete the wall hangings in a rather nice rustic way. And she says, I have made 212 rugs over a period of 34 years. And Alexa tells her that this averages out as 6.2353 rugs a year. But this doesn't take into account the great number of small squares, tea cozies, things that she made for local fairs and craft shows and things to sell. Doesn't count those things. It's just her larger works that number 212. And she says, yes, tea cozies. I have made a fair number of these in my time, not only owls and pussycats, but sea scenes with cliffs and lighthouses, flowers and robins. I also had a prolific badger phase. This all makes me sound as though I have worked very hard, but when you consider that my output is over a period of more than 30 years, it is not hard work, just a restlessness in my fingers and thumbs and a constant urge to make things. Let's see, she goes on and on there. Not in a negative way. I just don't want to read it because I want to save a ton of it. And then she talks about places that she exhibited in local places and churches, and there's some beautiful pictures of advertisements and of her and Lewis selling stuff at the fairs and things like that. At the end of the introduction, she says, I have never had any formal art training, but I have had the great advantage of being brought up in a family of painters. Strangely enough, I was well into the making of my rugs before I discovered that several members of my family, notably Winifred Nicholson. Winifred Nicholson is a quite famous painter. So that's just, I think that's just a coincidence, but that's kind of remarkable. Also had been concerned with keeping the craft alive. Winifred long ago had mourned the demise of the tradition of making rag rugs and set about trying to revive it as an art form. Make sure you look up Winifred Nicholson too, right? Beautiful, beautiful books of like flowers, potted flowers and things like that, arrangements, beautiful, bright, typical, I don't want to say typical, but very in keeping with the kind of 1930s sort of Bloomsbury, beautiful, colorful look. So that's just another rabbit hole to go down this weekend. Winifred mourned the demise of the tradition of making rag rugs and set about reviving it. She would drive around her area near Hadrian's Wall, encouraging the farmers' wives to continue and if they were bashful about designing their own pictorial ones, she would provide them with her own designs. Oh, God, to be that lucky, right? To be that lucky to have one of Winifred Nicholson's rag rug designs handed to you. I mean, whew, I hope that others, on seeing this book, will explore the possibilities in painting in rags and will derive the same enormous pleasure that the craft has given me. So Louisa wrote this in January of 2023 in York. Pam says, just had a quick look at Winifred Nicholson. Oh, wow, lovely work, right? Really, really good. To have a character like that as a family member is a very good start. So the first area of the book is about cats, and again, Louisa is really well known for her cats. Let me come over here, back here, and Lewis's pigs, too cute. So let's come over here. Oh, that is a picture of them at one of the fairs. I forgot I put that in. Take a look. I'm gonna have a quick sip, but it looks like it says hookies on this side, right? Because they do say hooky and not like rug hooking, but like they refer to the craft as hooky, like Prati, you know. So this is a great glimpse of the two of them at a fair. Look at the beautiful work behind them. Nature Bound. That cat is called Cat's Head. It's an ink on paper, and she did it in 1962. So beautiful. So beautiful. So let's check out some of these hooked cats. You know what? Let me make this a hair smaller. I can see that it's a little larger than the frame. Hang on a second while I shrink us down a little bit. You're going to be really surprised. I know the spoons. I noticed those too. Dang it. That looked like a good stall, didn't it? There for many of the rugs, and again, this book is like 130 something pages, but for many of the rugs, she has a long description for the rug, and that is really for me what makes this book so exceptionally great, because having a story, right, is really the thing. Looking at pictures is great, but looking at pictures and having a personal story, well, there's nothing better than that. So this is one that I will read a lot of the story, but I won't with many of them. But just know there's a lot of personal storytelling and biography mixed in with the various rugs. This one says, "This was my first rag rug." Now remember earlier how she said she saw one at a museum. She came home, she grabbed a hook, Hessian in some of Lewis's shirts. This was it. So this was my first rag rug. Having decided that I wanted to try to make one, I gathered together a hook, Hessian, and old shirts. None of these were suitable, as I gradually found out. The hook was not well adapted to rug making. The Hessian was dressed with something that made it very stiff, and shirting is an unrewarding and labor-intensive material to use for this purpose. However, I persevered, choosing a photograph I had taken of Rosie lying comfortably and peacefully, though looking perhaps a little guilty, in the airing cupboard. And then she goes on to mention that Rag Rugs of England and America book by Emma Tennant, right, that came out, I think sometime in the 1980s, maybe 1990s. And she says, in the next paragraph, she talks about by how chance Emma, while she was writing this book, picked up this image. Now, this was Louise's first rug, but she put it into the book Rag Rugs of England, also highly recommend. So that was a good start, right? Your first rag rug, boom, it's in a book. This was the 1980s, and that was the beginning of the revival of rug making and the transformation of, using scraps. I'm going to paraphrase this. And then she talks about how in the 80s, because the craft was enjoying a great revival. I know, Ryan, right? It's hard to believe that this is her first rug with all of this great texture. Remember, she's very artistic, and she comes from an artistic family. But she talks about how suddenly there are mills with scraps of fabric that might be used, nice cushy fabric, and there's rug groups popping up all over the place. So people can get together, share information, and things are about to get a lot easier. And she said of Rosie, she said, "I grew up with cats, but Lewis had never become intimate with them. When Rosie arrived as a small kitten from a farm, she very soon won him over. When she was bigger, she would invite him to chase her around the garden, then run up a tree out of his reach. My relationship with her was a much more sensuous one, and I can still feel her fur and her purr against my cheek, as she draped herself over my shoulder. Ooh, that one almost choked me up. That is so sweet. What a beautiful cat. This is Rosie in the airing cupboard, 1989. Okay, so that gives us a date for that whole thing. 1989, 44.5 inches by 34.5 inches. Absolutely beautiful piece, isn't it? You know, you can really see playfulness here, right? There is a pattern in the background because we have something in multiples. It's sheets folded up in multiples. They're all different. That's the thing that's really playful. Some are stripy, some are polka dot, some are solids, but they're all different. So she created patterning by including multiples, a collection of something. Our eye immediately reads that this is linens and they're folded up. And here's Rosie snuck in amongst all of this in a nice cozy cupboard. And there is something magical about the fiber that Louisa chose for the background because it has a kind of static look. It's a color changing or maybe several color changing tweeds. Whatever it is, she created this weird staticky shadow that is so moody and atmospheric. It looks like an inky shadow, but more broken up, right? It's very atmospheric. Now remember her style or her technique, her habit of putting, the wool together in bundles and then choosing from it. I think that's important here because if she also does that with um, textile, like textured wools, like herringbones and plaids and things that have something of a pattern, that might be what we're seeing in the background of Rosie. It might well be, right? I thought that was just an exceptional first rug. I know we all do. It's just incredible. This is a funny one too. Oh, you know what? Before we look at that one, let's come back over here. No, wait a minute. I want to. Well, let me show you the cover. I'll just show you on the cover of the book. This is an interesting one here too. Um, and I want to talk about that for a minute because it is on the cover of the book, so we should acknowledge it. This has a great story behind it. Let me just put. I thought I had that slide in there. What a dingity dong, huh? No, wait a minute. No, not going to work. I'll show it to you again in a second. But of this is Rosie again, right? Looks like Rosie. Rosie, like all cats, knew where she looked good. She settled in places where the color of her fur was shown to best advantage. Here she chose a cushion made of a fabric designed by Ben Nicholson. And the fabric is called, so I'm going to show this to you again, George and Rufus. It was the fabric is circa 1937. So in other words, in this, Rosie's sitting on a piece of fabric cushion. These were names, George and Rufus were names that Ben Nicholson gave to the animals that are sort of in the background of the design, the curious animals, she says, the colors which harmonize so perfectly with Rosie. So she took a photograph. Louisa took a photograph quickly, just in case she moved, so that she could work from this. So she works well from photographs. I thought it was on camera. She works well from photographs. So you can see it right behind me. Rosie, and then the two sort of doggy type characters, or wolfy type characters. That is a Ben Nicholson textile made into a cushion, and it's a print. And George and Rufus are the two brown characters over here, right? Over here. Such a cute piece. Good evening, Cindy. Great to see you. It's perfect fabrics for the inside of a cup. And it was a great idea with the cupboard with Rosie in it to use shirts, to use Lewis's shirts, because it makes a lot of sense, right? They would be the kinds of like ticking type, stripes and that you would expect to see for bedding and for shirting material. But she's making the simple point that they are hard to work with, right? It's not ideal. They're really thin. You don't get a lot of loft. You don't get a big cushy loop, pulling up shirting fabric. It's possible. And we know it's possible because she said she persevered and she got it done, but difficult, right? Maybe unduly difficult. So I'm going to skip some pages here and hold on while I find this little character. This little character is called The Intruder, 2009, 28 by 33. This is in a private collection. So she tells a little bit of a story about this, and at the end, she makes a really cute point. She says, at the end of this page, even what I consider to be a mistake can develop into something positive if I keep my mind open and adhere to my self-imposed rule of never unpicking until the rug is finished. the materials have their voices too. See, that's interesting. And that is so hard to stick with. And I know we talk about this idea a lot of not unpicking, right? Just give it that classic hot minute and see what happens before, you go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's hard to do sometimes. It's absolutely hard to do. But if you can, it's a good thing because like Louise is saying, sometimes things resolve themselves in the most astonishing way. Just like the technology when I logged onto this show, sometimes it just is all right, and you think, oh, well, that's good. It's nice when things get fixed and you didn't really do anything. It's just, it just worked out. Many things happen that way. Crafts often happen that way, certainly textiles. You see how she really has, do you see the point that she was making, that she uses colors that are close together, but not necessarily the same color? This is her great hack, right? Mark talks about it in the introduction, and then Louisa herself describes it in the text of the book. So we're looking at a blanket that is made of green and reds, and you can plainly see that neither is solid, right? And it doesn't quite give that 19th century look like she ran out of the red. It gives a super artsy look, doesn't it? Real sort of boho feel to it, mixing in the red with other colors that are like colors. A red violet is quite like the red. The darker kind of scarlet or brick color, orangey reds further up top, on top of the intruder, are also tonally quite similar. Either the similar color, like red to red, or a similar tone, like the medium red to the medium purple, right? Either way, it's going to work. They blend together. Your eye blends them together. But it creates... Where's Buttons? Sorry, that was not good for camera. I hear the dog crying and scratching. I'm just wondering where he is because it is terribly cold outside. The background too, you can see she wanted to have the lightest light value right behind the cat. And I think that's really smart because it really pops the intruder's, I hate to call him the intruder, he looks so cute, doesn't he? It really pops his face, like the silhouette is very, very strong because the lightest value is right there. And you can see she goes out to other colors, many more colors of yellow, a little bit of gray coming in as a neutral, right, which is helping a lot. But it still reads as a quite light background. Karen says, pieces do tell you when a fiber choice is or is not working. It's that gut feeling you have to listen to. Yet that is probably a totally the opposite style of hooking. We all have to march to our own drummer. Hold on one second. I'm just going to leave a message. Where is Buttons? I hear him crying and scratching. I'm sorry, I never do that during the show, but where is Buttons? Right? It's like a Nancy Drew movie. That's driving me nuts. So, both philosophies work. And, I always say on the show, I always say in classes, you have to work according to your own drummer, right? You just do. Fighting with yourself usually doesn't work out. And it's a bit schizophrenic, really. So, Louisa's way is keep going. Is the dog outside?
Hey, Mom.
You better see if the dog is outside.
Oh, all right.
If your way is to keep going like Louisa and then say, hot minute, let's see if this works out. That's a great way. Oh, he's right here. He was right under my feet. He was right. I'm a hot mess. You know what? I think I will take some alcohol. Yeah, I'm going to take any alcohol. And Karen is saying immediate gut feeling as you're working on something just ain't working, right? And so you honor whatever way that you work, right? I'm sure Louisa would say the same thing. The important thing is, in my mind, the important thing is that you make thoughtful decisions as you go. Are you coming to make a cameo appearance? Here comes my buddy Ted.
Oh, hey, Mom.
Hey, he's so big. He's so much bigger than me.
Yeah.
Did you have your first voice lesson today?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, how was it?
It was really good.
Excellent. So I was just saying on camera in terms of, maybe you agree with this, when you're making something, it's very important that not so much the way that you do it, right? Whatever way you choose. Oh, I'm going to pull out as I go, or I'm going to wait until the end. It's not so much the way that you choose to work it's important that you choose, right? It's making the choice that's important. Be thoughtful about what you're doing while you're doing it. Work according to your sort of comfort level and your personal style, and things will work out the best. Look at you, got a lot of people saying hi to you. He does have a gorgeous head of hair. Well,
Thank
that's
you.
one word
Oh
for
yeah.
it.
Hey mom, is it okay if I invite Dan, John, and Cam to go to the Bear Path place
Art
again?
night. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm doing a live
No,
show.
no, not art night. I mean tomorrow. Like.
Can we talk about it while I'm not doing a live show?
All right.
Yeah, of course you can bring your
Love
friends
you.
anywhere. Love you too.
Bye-bye.
Anywhere ever. Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that. People who don't know me that well, I still have two young kids, and it's hard to get away from them. I'll tell them you all said hi. Thank you. Judy says her color choices also give the impression of light falling across the subject, changing the perception of the hues. Absolutely. You know, we're going to keep going and let's look at more examples, but there is something about that technique of putting like colors together. Um, in painting, it has historically been done through many sort of periods, phases of art. In textile, you sometimes see it, but I honestly have never heard anybody articulate the technique as putting colors into bundles and then almost indiscriminately using them interchangeably. I've never heard anybody articulate that and demonstrate that as well as Louisa. And this is really interesting to me because it's this sort of forthcoming attitude, sharing what is absolutely her greatest trick is the movement of color and the blending of color. It's absolutely amazing. I'm so glad. Oh, Karen says, I'm so glad that I met him. He's such a well-mannered young man. He was trying to give you a hug, Karen, when you were leaving. And he was trying to, I could tell by his body language, he was trying to get a feel if it was appropriate. My son is autistic. And he is really sweet. He really liked meeting you too. So the intruder actually looks like an adorable. I mean, I would steal this cat. I would lock the door with 10 locks and keep him inside forever and ever. Now, the next section of the book, there's lots more cats in there, but the next section of the book is about monuments. So Louisa does a lot with traveling around England and checking out some of these famous monuments. This one I think is familiar to all of us. This is Stonehenge in 1998. This is 49 by 63. And she's got a beautiful introduction to this. I just snipped a little part of it that goes like this. I very much enjoyed trying to achieve the effect of stone by mixing a large number of grays with other grayish colors and dark streaks for crevices, right? This sounds like the same, thank you very much. This sounds like the same kind of technique. I used some rough fabrics together with wool and velvet. I made the drawing of this image with the aid of a photograph. Working a lot with photographs, that makes great sense, doesn't it? The rug was sold to an American friend who hung it in her adobe house in Santa Fe. Very shortly after, the house was burned to the ground with all of its contents. So this is now a memory, but thankfully, Louisa's system of photographing and documenting her rugs so well, putting them into files means even though that rug is gone, we still have a perfect record of it. Cheers, my dears. This is that yogurt bowls again. Oh, yeah. All right, let me see what the next. Ooh, what did Ryan say? Oh, the Stonehenge rug. Wow, my new favorite rug ever. Oh, right. I mean, it is. It's so moody, isn't it? It's so atmospheric. She's using the same techniques here that she has used in the other rugs that we saw. The look at the sky, look at the amount of blues, and then she introduces gray. She seems to remember that brown and gray are neutrals, along with white and black. So when she says she grabs a handful of blues, she gets all of her blues, maybe pulls them out of the pigeonholes, and and then she introduces typically a neutral. So far, I haven't seen her introducing, for example, into the sky like a pink or a purple, something like that. Maybe she does, but a neutral, right? Because neutrals don't count, right? Technically. So lots and lots of blues and then some neutrals. Same thing in the grass. Lots and lots of greens and then some neutrals. We've got some black and some darker gray. Same thing with the stone. Lights the, it goes light to like that ochre color, but that is it is a stone color that we recognize, right? So she's keeping the stone colors as stone colors. She's keeping everything color-wise quite literal, but the technique that she uses, right, of this mixing technique that is really her own, this is what makes everything look so lively, patterned, but it still looks very clear, concise, cohesive, because she's quite literal with color, right? So it's such an interesting technique. She goes, this is another version of, this is rather more fanciful image of Stonehenge playing with shadows. Also did this in 1998, Stonehenge in the snow. This is at the Beamish. Oh, we have the book from we looked at the book from the Beamish Museum, Beamish, the Living Museum of the North. We looked at that book, I think 2 Christmases ago. It was fantastic, a Ragrug's book. Yeah, Beamish, Beamish. If you don't have that book, that's another absolute must. That's one of the great British Ragrug books. I am so into the British rag. Aren't you? I mean, it's so different than the American tradition. I just love the wildness of it, right? It's so different. Let's keep going because there's lots of stuff we want to look at. I can't run my mouth too much. Let's see. Oh, okay. So this is another one. Is that Avery? Hold on, let me find it. I'm flipping through some amazing images. Oh no. Like other ancient sites, Castlerig, which lies close to Keswick in Cumbria, invites one to drop one's voice to a whisper or stand silently absorbing the presence of these stones. The mystery one feels is difficult to capture in rags, but the setting in itself is enough to spark off the imagination. Yeah, it's absolutely stunning, right? The sort of rolling landscape behind, layers, right? Like layers in a cake, of dark and light and color, right? Just catching the color and then doing her mixing technique. This is exactly what she said she was going to do at the beginning of the book, right? She really knows herself. She said, once you have a way of working, it's very hard to change it. And honestly, why would you change it, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I love her fabric choices too, Karen, right? The tweedies, it's so good. But she figured out something that works really well, and she does it, right? She plays with it, huge scope and variety within her playing, over the years, right? And sometimes she's mastered color, right? There's no question about that. So she often plays with shadows, as she is here. Just something else to play with, right? She's got a strong, horizontal thrust, right? This is a heavily horizontal, composition with layers running horizontally, greeny blues, the tweedy dark, right? And then some more greenies, and then some oranges, and then some blues. So all of those parallel shelves of color, are working horizontally, and it really highlights the vertical thrust of these magical stones. And their shadows, weirdly and in high contrast, a great moment of theater here. The stones are vertical, but they are casting horizontal shadows, and those shadows are feeding your eye into that horizontal composition, which makes all of these horizontals make all the more these few verticals, these stones stand out. It's a fantastic, Ryan, these are blowing you away. I can see your work stylistically aligned to this style. I can absolutely see, you loving this and doing stuff that's like this, right? Your compositions have this kind of a flavor and certainly have the amount of color play, in common. Pam says, the hills remind me of the UK and Scotland, and the heather blooming, those gorgeous pinky purple flowers. The distance is so well done. Oh, it is just stunning. Barbara says, I love hooking from my photographs and using many small bits of similar colors. Stonehenge hooking is so beautiful. Christy, great to see you. Hello in Nashville. Welcome. Great to see you. This is another one on the same page. This is the same, formation of rocks, Castle Rig, but in the snow. So the one we just saw was obviously not in the snow. It was like, looked like summer. This one is in the snow, 2014. This is 26 by 26, so much smaller. But again, beautiful choices of lines. Now, this is the exception to what we were talking about earlier. Different composition, right? She's looking at the stones from a different point of view. Still playing with shadows. Take a look at those gray shadows on the ground, right? So we know exactly where the sun is, and looks like the sun is disappearing behind mountains in the distance. Now, she is doing here exactly what I said I hadn't seen so far. She has got the neutral white as the snow on the ground, right? Blanket of snow. And she's using as her extra color purple, but like a very soft lilac with some dark purples. And I think that is just brilliant because she is still creating the most immense examples of patterning. Look down on the first level of ground, kind of toward the back, right? You see almost a V shape of the lightest value of lavender or lilac in the white snow, going in one direction, like southwest. And then over on the right, hey Juliet, watching from Maryland. Oh, these rugs are amazing, right? Interesting pop of red, Nature Bound said. It is, isn't it? It really fits though, doesn't it? With that blue sky, it looks like the setting sun, that burning setting sun. Lots of neutrals in the rocks and the distant hills, and then that blanket of snow on the lower elevation, picked out in purples, unexpected. But you can see her patterning. You can see the way she's running her lines. Directional patterning, directional hooking is very important for Teresa's work, right? Color placement, her trick with the colors. But the next layer of interest, the next thing for us to look for is the patterning. Remember how at the beginning she said she liked big flat spaces. Remember how she said, I know other people like to hook with a much smaller cut, more like embroidery, very fine, much more detailed. She likes to hook with these big, broad, open spaces, right? And she works on Hessian. So she's got a big open space to fill, and then she starts to fill it with pattern, right? Using her hack of having all these bundles of color that she already figured out that they go together. So this is two, right? We've evolved to tip number 2 with this example because we're able to see the directional hooking in the way that she works. It really is extraordinary, isn't it? So then we move along to the next chapter, which is owls. And she talks in the intro. I'm going to read you part of the intro. She said, I have an ideas draw into which any cards, cuttings, or photographs that strike me as good subjects are thrown. For the day when I need inspiration for a rug. Amen to that, right? The card that provided me with the idea for this owl was hiding among a chaos of pictures of all kinds. The drawing was easy enough, but the expression was challenging, and the plumage details were fiddly. However, for once, I had no doubts during the making of this rug. This is called Eagle Owl, 2008, 39 by 35. Absolutely beautiful. Let's look at this a little bit closer up. Let me unlock. And I'm going to move it around. I just want it a little bit bigger. I love obviously the owl, the patterning on the owl. He is the character. I don't know if they are all males. They're probably not, but this one's beautiful, so I'm guessing it is the male. You know, there's beyond the owl, which is just scrumptious. There's a lot of other interesting things going on. The beautiful light wispiness, the patterning, right? Using the sort of grays with the yellows, using the whites with the yellows, using the yellows with the yellows, and then layering on patterning is just what she's been doing. It's smart. It's working. It's different this time. It's all coming together like the perfect storm of goodness. But in the background, we've got 2 more things going on that I think are notable. So I'm seeing the purpley tone of the inside of the owl's ears, blending in beautifully, giving a very sharp look to the ear, which is how their ears look when they're listening, isn't it? They're like little sharp pricks standing up like little triangles. But the background of this piece is exceptional. Gail, those eyes are mesmerizing. They're very simple lines, but she has captured that expression. It's like a don't mess with me, isn't it? The background of this piece, take it in. warm, plummy purples, neutrals, blacks, grays, oranges, yellows, unexpected. It's a bit of a Halloween palette, unexpected. And then move to the border. She is outlined with that nice sort of flame orange, blazing orange color, two ways. In the corners, she has a little concentration of dark, right? Like the corners of the photo things where you used to put photos in a scrap album. But the rest of the border appears to be a kind of an unmeasured but series of rectangles done in different wools. She's probably hooking a wool, using it up, moving over to the next space. Because it doesn't look perfectly measured. It doesn't look like, agonizing and nauseating geometry happening here, like perfectly divided up frame. It seems like very natural movement. And it shows you how many tweeds she's got going in this one piece, right? We see them in the body of the owl, but you really see them stand out well, kind of being displayed like a sampler in the border of this frame. Let me bring you down. Let me bring you down to see the rest of it. I'm just going to take a quick sip, but take a look at the owl in both the border and the background. I think this is an exceptional fusion of really warm colors, orange and yellow, with a ton of neutrals and very cool grays. Such a beauty, April, isn't it? Olivia says, the play of light against darkness makes her rugs pop. Lots of depth. You can tell she has a good artist's eye. That's absolutely true. And like she said herself, she doesn't have artistic training, but she comes from a family of artists. And I think that's the best training of all, to be around people who enjoy art, talk about art, seek art out, look at it, make and discuss it, right? Have you ever heard that expression? I'm going to crucify the expression, but it's something like it's not very nice, but it's an expression, right? So I didn't make it up. Something like small people with small minds talk about other people. People of like medium intelligence talk about events and things like that. That tends to be where I go. Oh, you go making conversation. Oh, you going anywhere this summer? Seen any good movies lately? That kind of thing. But people of high intelligence talk about ideas. I don't know if that's true or not. I think I talk about all three, to be honest. But I like that saying, right? Because it reminds you how important it is to do that sort of highbrow talk once in a while. Nobody can do it all the time, right? Nobody's nauseating if you do it all the time. But it's nice if you come from a family where talking about art was something that happened, right? Because whether or not you realize it, you drink it in, and your mind only has X amount of room to populate all of your ideas and the things that you need to know to function and evolve as an adult. And don't you sometimes wish that you could take huge chunks out, like the geography of a place you lived 20 years ago, like all of the streets, right? Like if you could only take out these huge chunks of memory and put in something else, like a grocery list, right? That you don't have to write down. You might not actually forget every single thing when you get to the grocery store, but memory doesn't work that way. Certainly it works this way. When you're a child and you're introduced to art, that's a thing, right? That's a thing that doesn't go away. Children and art, as Stephen Sondheim would say. It's a natural match. So I love that she made that point of saying, I'm not trained, but obviously she is an exquisite artist. She has figured it out by looking. Here's another owl. This is a barn owl in the moonlight from 2007, 30 by 30, employing some of the same techniques, including the border, but using more solid examples in the border. Lots of mossy greens, aren't there? This is very different. I can't think of, and Louisa seems to go to this warm, mossy kind of a green often. And I just love it. You just don't see it. Its perfect complement, looking at this rug, has got to be that terracotta brick color that you see in the border. What could be better than that, right? Nothing could be better than that. Again, lots of neutrals mixed in, lots of neutrals that are not solids, the tweedy blacks and grays again, mixed in with really warm colors. The greens are quite warm colors, right? The dark and the light. And then that reddish color is very green, the yellow very warm, almost a sunshine, right? It is being dulled down because of the colors around it. It looks like oh, Dawn, good to see you. It looks like a nighttime composition for sure. I mean, it's an owl, right? But I think it's just exquisite. This is a little different than the one before it because this is a little farther back. And the amount of branches that we're seeing is creating its own pattern, isn't it? I mean, that in itself is a pattern. I have to say, the mossy green and terracotta is so complementary. And then the owl just pops out, Pam says. Absolutely. And a little bit of speckling, right? Not it's I don't love realism in rugs personally. And sometimes it's rugs are so realistic that I feel like excellent. Technically, you have recreated a photograph. Like that's, I mean, I'm not being sarcastic. It is remarkable. It's technically unbelievable. But when I see this style of rug, this has way more artistry in my mind than figuring out how to replicate something technically and exactly. This is making choices that are artistic decisions at 100 intervals in one afternoon. Should I use the speckly black, white, gray in the body? Should I? Is it there? Is it spread out there? Is it only on one wing? Does it go throughout the whole shape because the body of the owl is being treated as a single shape here? These are decisions you have to make when you work in this style. You have to have it has to be a little bit hardwired, right? You have to have a good sort of built-in monitor that says, yeah, let's do this as a shape. It's a good diagonal. It's very strong because the patterning of the branches, right? Christy's going to say this perfectly right here. The subject and the colors kind of remind me of a folksy William Morris pattern. Perfect. Christy, that's absolutely perfect. Nail on the head. Yeah, it does have the character of like the strawberry thief or like a little bird in a big world and you're just getting a crop of some of these huge branches. It does have that feel for sure. Color-wise, for me, it's very different than a William Morris. He does a lot with greens, but he does a lot with cool greens, like pepperminty, pistachio, sagey greens. These are so warm. The trees look like they'd be like moist to touch, don't they? Like you'd be scared to touch them because there'd be something like wet growing on them. I just love the yellow quality and the expression on the owl's face. Right? He's not confronting us like the owl was in the slide before. He's like thinking about what his next move is, or maybe he's trying to clock a noise that he hears and hopes it's not a predator. But it has just as much personality as the owl before this. Very different composition, right? So there is a whole chapter on owls. Um, here comes a different chapter. Oh, Veronica, good to see you. Oh, you just got in from work. I'm sorry. Oh, that's okay. We're still going strong. Okay, let me get through these owls. These are some beautiful owls, but I want to show you the next chapter that is called My Planetaries. And she says, an orb to me is the most satisfying shape in the world. This simple design enables me to experiment with colors and with loop directions in a different way. No focus on a picture. So she's quite right. These are abstract, right? It's great to call them planetaries, but they're still abstract. This, it's very, the whole school of transcendental artists, right? Who lived out west. Georgia O'Keeffe was one. Agnes Pelton was one. Agnes Pelton was my favorite. She did a lot of stuff with orbs as well. This also reminds me of the art work of Hilma af Klint, right? The dualities, right? Hilma loved duality. She did a lot with orbs too, abstract shapes, things that look planetary, but with the half dark, half light, right? The very nature of life being made up of contrasts, right? Dualities, right? So this is one of these great abstract works of Louise's that God, where do you start? It's called Blue Moon 2009. I'll start there. 36.5 by 32 inches. It's just an extraordinary work. She is playing with color. The central design is dark versus light, and you can see there are rings within. So she has got her old trick going of darks, all of my whites, all of my blues. Amazing. If I have this upside down, actually, hold on. I've got it upside down. Let me unlock this and flip it because it's going to drive me crazy. I know it's an abstract, but I want to do it exactly the way that she showed it in the book. There we go. Sorry about that. That actually is better. It's better reading the light on the left. Technically, it looks better. So, and then if you look at the two red and white behind, those are split too, not to dark and light, right? It's almost like, Mars, the red planet, and the light other. And then the two orbs on the bottom are broken down like the large central orb in half, like dualities with many rings of shape. And then instead of choosing between doing horizontal orientation, vertical orientation, she does a diagonal orientation. And it is a full blast hit or miss background. It almost looks like these orbs, these planets flying through space, God forbid, and through the weather, through the atmosphere. I don't even know what's up there. I don't even know what the right words are, but you know what I mean. The color, the speed, the motion. It's just an extraordinary piece. So this whole chapter for her is called My Planetaries, and we are looking at only abstracts in this chapter. This one is called Playing with Gray, 2013, 32 by 30. Another, another zinger. It's just extraordinary. She's often using such wide pieces that it almost looks rope-like. Do you know what I mean? Her directional hooking is so fine. She's not outlining, doing the puzzle maker thing and then filling. She's going round and around and around like concentric echoes, right? From it looks like not from the center, but from the outer ring, might be the center. But it's just extraordinary. Doing this trick of using many of one color, for example, orange in the center, she gets so much fire into that one shape. Color after color after color. There's one time in the center where she does the double. You see where there's a larger, that's two rows at once, make that larger ring. But until then, there is not one time that the colors repeat, right? So it keeps your eye moving. Same with the background. It has the feeling of looking down God's eye view at the countryside, patches of pasture. Maybe you're thinking of a patchwork quilt. Oh, Dominique, great to see you. Judy says, wow, she contained multitudes, huh? She did. She has so many different styles and stuff. She has a handful of subjects, but man, she delved into each one, as she said, prolifically. It's just incredible. So all of this patterning in the background, right? Again, just clock the warm colors with the neutrals, right? There are some browns, some blacks. There's kind of a browny plum, the warm yellows, the warm orangey reds. Even the green is on the warm kind of citrusy side. It's not, there is a cool green between them. There is one cool green in there. And then there's some cool grays in there. But gray is functioning as a neutral. Heavy on the white. Heavy on the white. Few tweed strips thrown in there. See if your eye can find them while I drink my booze here. There we go. It's just exceptional. And what would your pattern look like if this were the pattern you were working on? Would it just be a circle? Or would it be a circle with a square around it? Would you be figuring out as you went along? It looks like it has kind of a buttress flying up on the side of it. I have the feeling that she is a completely seat of the pants painter with fabric. And I have a feeling she figures it out as she goes along. And her work really throws into contrast the two polar opposite schools of hooking. Because a technical person, I think, would really struggle with this style, thinking, what was the composition in the first place? Is the composition balanced? Not completely. Although it is rather balanced, I have to say. It's not a fish, but do you vaguely see where it could be a fish or an origami fish with an enormous eye, with a huge optic problem? Vague, right? Very vague. Jessica, great to see you. Oh my God, Jessica, your latest piece. Holy mackerel. I was not kidding when I said that you should be working on a book. Your family stuff is over the top. If you've been looking at Jessica's work on Jessica Troyer on our Facebook group, which is Raw Cooking and Punch Needle Club, the piece that you just put up, was it today? I saw it today. I don't know if you put it up today, but man, excellent, excellent, excellent. You're a new hooker and you are killing it. Yep, the technical versus the creative. It is so marked in this episode because Teresa, although technically she's got some extraordinary tricks in her bag of tricks, she's got some incredible technical hacks that I have never thought of. And luckily she shares them in the book, right? But yeah, I mean, her style is so pronounced. It's so specific. It's so using the same style. She keeps getting such different pieces from one to the next. Doesn't it seem impossible? And then we click on a slide and we see something completely, now for something completely different. I think I'm flipping through some planetaries that you just would not believe. Coming to the next chapter, which is European landscapes. And she wrote, Lewis and I were eager travelers and very much enjoyed our European explorations. We didn't plan, we just followed our noses. I loved to see the landscapes roll by from the bus windows and always had ragrugs in the back of my mind. I didn't take photographs because I felt that this detracted from my experience, but postcards bought in small towns helped to jog my memory when I got home. This piece is called Patch of Poppies, Tuscany, 2009. This is 22 by 22. God. Again, it's just how? How is this possible? It's what we've been talking about all along, right? Like colors next to each other, with the exception of that central hill. She's got quite a few colors mixed in, but they're all colors that are present in other parts of the composition. You see the trees, like the swaying trees, they almost like figures on the distant hill. She is, for the most part, employing her technique of like colors, and she is hooking directionally, and it's very pronounced. And she's choosing different directions. She is outlining the shape, and she's filling it just with her innate feel for what direction those lines should be going. Sometimes they wiggle, sometimes they break, according to what they need to do. She's got a really good feel for it. Very, very gentle landscape, very abstract, and yet there is such realism in that little Tuscan building, in that little, what might be little grove of olive trees or something right next to it, that cooler green, right, with those warm trees showing, lots of yellows around them to really pop the foreground. It looks like you're looking down into the foreground, using a little bit of green and a tiny bit of greeny blue to really pop and drag your eye around. She really understands about dragging your eye around the. I don't mean dragging it like my kids drag their feet when they're inside a shop. I mean, you really want to force your viewer's eye to travel all over the place. That's number one with looking at art. You don't want them to look at it, clock it, and go, got that one, do one of these. Speaking of Italy, I remember years ago when I'm going to tell a story that leads to this. My sister did an exchange program. She's like 7 years younger than me. She went to Bari, in the south of Italy, in the boot. And man, the host mother, Elena, was an incredible woman in so many ways. It was absolutely a nutty household, but a lot of fun. Very, very strict. But Elena had for us, I was in my, I guess, late 20s, maybe middle 20s. My sister was in high school. But man, when I visited, she had a sort of a bucket list of Italy for us. And she actually said she took us places like a whirlwind, right? Absolute whirlwind. And we went to Vatican City and we actually saw the Pope and touched his hand. The second we touched his hand, she went like this. And she said in Italian, on to the next. And I thought, this is really something. This is really something. But, that is exactly what you don't want to do when you're looking at art. You don't want to do this and have the person wander away. You want to keep them there. I love this one too, Melissa. It is so, remember the movie Under the Tuscan Sun? It is so beautiful. It is so romantic. It is so warm and fresh. How is that possible? It really has the feeling of Italy. It has the coziness. It also reminds me, I know that it is Tuscany, but it reminds me, remember that Peter Mayle series, The Year in Provence, that I think it was a series of 4. It's just that beautiful European countryside, isn't it, that Louisa really, and Lewis really loved traveling together. It's just an extra, it makes you feel happy. Absolutely. So this one is similar in its colors. It's a very different composition. Tuscany in the spring. So it doesn't have those burnt summer colors, does it? It has those first spring colors, first green of spring colors. Still looks like a very similar view, a very similar landscape, but this one has a completely different palette. We are also, it's more immediate, right? Because we're not looking down on it, we're looking over at it. So we're closer to this. Completely different composition, using same techniques. Every time it's different, every time it works. I mean, isn't that really something? It's really something to think about, because everybody gets stuck with their hooking projects and their painting projects and all their creative projects. But it's good to think about these hacks because you can see what a pro Louisa is. She figured this out and she stuck with it because it works great. It works every time. Little pops of colors in the right places, right? Not in places where they will distract, not in places where they will drag your eye away from the composition. That nice bright light shining in front of those trees, putting the trees into silhouette. Remember the intruder, the cat on the couch. I don't know why I have to say that in that German voice every time I say that. But remember the cat on the couch and the light right behind his head. How well those super darks look. How much darker this kind of average green, evergreen color looks with super light colors behind it. It looks like silhouette to us because the light is in front of it. Really, really clever. Kirsten says, and the dots are the a hot color. Yep, that's a good one. Really bring it forward with color and scale. Yep, that's a good one. So Kirsten's saying like those dots of red, like that kind of poppy color that we're seeing, that's the poison, right? Rug hookers like to say the poison in this piece. Poison is good. You want a little bit of poison. Too much poison and you kill it. You kill something. A little bit of poison keeps you interested, brings you in, right? Really pops. Good one, Kirsten. I missed that. I also love that icy pink, right? That impossible icy pink that seems like more blue than pink. You know that pink? It's very, very hard to get. It's very, very hard to dye. When I dye it, I like to use it immediately. I only get that pink typically when I do pantyhose. For some reason, the nylon will take that weird lightest light. And for us in the US, that lightest value of that icy pink with a purplish blue tint to it, the best colors to get that if you're a dyer are Power Pink from Cushing and rhodamine pink or rhodamine red, rhodamine, whatever it is, from Prochem. Like 3 grains, right? And it'll give you that icy pink, super helpful color, that cool pink against those warmer greens, right? And then those spring greens. Oh, talk about a color expert, right? Oh, see, oh, I missed a good comment. Karen, Karen, I love the dots in the foreground and the long dashes. Karen, I'm sorry I missed that. Absolutely. Dots and dashes, right? It is a bit Morse codey. It is like she's embedding color into her formula, which is very line driven because of her technique of alternating colors and swapping out colors. She gets a very line driven fills for every part of the composition. It's broken up into compartments, and then she fills each compartment by hooking in typically different directions for interest, for movement, for energy, right? But then here and there, right, and in this case, there's also the curly kind of Van Gogh tree line in the distance. And in the foreground, all of those little dots and dashes. That's a great way to put it, Karen. It is like Morse code in super poison brights. That's really, really excellent. My mom says, was it Gauguin that put 3 spots of red in many of his work to keep the eye? Gosh, it sounds familiar. I don't remember. It might well have been Gauguin. I don't remember. I remember hearing that decades ago. I can't remember who that was. It could be Gauguin. Gauguin was like the jungle painter, the island painter. No, not the island. He did jungly stuff. He did a lot with color. I'm trying to picture some of his work. Could be. I don't know. I'll have to look that one up. If anyone has time, let me know. That's a good tip. See, every artist has a hack, right? And most artists won't tell you because people are so crazy and in scarcity mode all the time, right? And then there are some people who are just good natured from the start. I think Louisa is one of those people. There are more people, this is me being cynical, but there are more people who are of that mentality, like only tell this to other teachers or don't tell anybody this is an insider tip. There are more of those, I find, than there are people like Louisa who will say, this is exactly what I'm doing. If you want the same effect, you should do it. This is what I'll remind you later that this is what I'm doing again. This is her top tip, right? And it's very hard to figure out. That's why we do the design light classes, what people's top tips are, unless they tell you. This is an excellent one for hookers, right? Not just she's also would be an excellent painter, but for hookers, this is an absolute top tip. Karen says, "Let me come back to the pictures. Lines are driven when the farmers mow their fields. Yep, farmers know how to plow their fields, especially on slopes. Interesting. So these could actually be there and not just be pattern fills. It could well be. She certainly does a lot with patterning, but it does evoke farming feels like that classic, English patchwork from the sky. If you ever come down over the countryside on a plane and you do see all that directional striping, it's like people always say, oh, it looks like a patchwork on the plane, and it really, really does. Pam says, I do know he used complementary colors in his work, red, green, orange, blue, etc. Yep, that's one we're going to have to go back to. I want to think on that. All right, let's see what the next one is I got. Okay, this one's very different. Hang on a second while I catch up. Santorini, Greece. She says, Louis and I traveled many, many times to Greece. We used to book our first night only, and then wander around the various groups of islands as the fancy took us. And then she goes on to talk about how sadly there are, a massive amount of cruise ships and buses and tourism coming in, and it doesn't have that same kind of remote charm. The gigantic. This view is looking up at a village on the cliff top from a boat on the caldera, the gigantic crater of an extinct volcano filled with seawater. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. There's something for the geologists right there. Beautiful patterning on this piece too, isn't it? Layers. She's very good at doing layers. She's very good at playing with diagonals too, because the motif that is the wild card, the thing that's moving, is that motorboat coming in, isn't it? And tugboat, whatever it is. It's coming in on a diagonal. She does a lot with diagonal lines in the composition. Very, very unexpected. Because without that boat, it would read as a much more kind of sort of stoic, heavy middle piece of rock. It would be a storytelling piece about the place. But with that boat coming in, it adds a person. So it has a more sort of humanizing feel to it. It also can give scale to the piece, right? And in this case, it does. But really unusual breakdown of color. In the foreground, I hope you can see on this slide, it's not showing up that well on my monitor, but the beach sands are like light grays, almost purpley in value, with really warm yellows, 2 tones of yellow, maybe 3. And the sea is like that really classic, Mediterranean kind of blues and greens. Maybe this is Mediterranean, isn't it, if it's Greece? Or it could be, my geography is not that good, Aegean. But in any case, there's a lot of Teddy. There's a lot of green and teal in there. I'm just going to send a note upstairs, make Teddy stop, because I don't know if you can hear that. These children are like feral children at this time of night. Absolutely beautiful piece. Santorini, Greece. Did I tell you that? 2005, 34 by 32. Oh, wow. This has got to still be Greece. Hold on. Let me find this one. 2 Greek Widows. I thought it was going to be Windows. 2 Greek Widows, 2006, 31 by 35. It's in a private collection. While clambering about in the dazzling whitewashed villages, I was struck by the contrast of the black garments. The windows wore the black garments. I'm sorry, I did it again. I have my good glasses on. The black garments the widows wore with their bright surroundings. It's jarring, isn't it? It's absolutely picturesque. Another example of Louise's work, working in stark contrast to silhouette form. Right, so this is like the 3rd or 4th time we've mentioned something that was done in silhouette form with a really dark color against the brightest value in the piece. And that is really something. More directional fills here. This is this is a kind of composition that's a see-through, peek-through, whatever you call it. Covered bridges fall into this. Views out windows, like Matisse's work, falls into this category. This category of composition shows you a small, piece of the composition as the main motif, and it's like a picture that you're meant to look at. Your eye is traveling through a tunnel and looking at that picture, but it's never the whole composition with this style, right? You get a lot of the background story too, so it walks you into it, almost makes you feel like you have a secret glimpse at something. So the main motif is what we're seeing through that sort of mouse hole shape. And bright, bright, bright white colors outside, and stark contrast, these two widows walking along with their baskets, probably doing their daily routine. It is just beautiful, and it's made more beautiful by having some of the information about the space itself that the viewer is standing in, right? These beautiful walls, this shuttered, probably house, beams on top, some kind of a passageway leading through, some atmospheric little, foreign alleyway, right, leading to where? Well, it looks like leading to the sea. But it's all shaded, exquisite directional hooking, again, on the ground, on the roof, the ceiling roof, and on that wall especially, right? Those nice, warm yellows and oranges, again, Karen, the Morse code, the dots and dashes, and then a bit of a disheveled, closed shutter in that cooler blue. So a lot of contrast there, working with opposite colors. That's like a Van Gogh wall right there with the blues, the yellows, and the oranges. Really extraordinary, isn't it, this? Just absolutely beautiful. Great glimpse, great postcard. This has got to be a different chapter. Yes, we are into the chapter on birds. Hold on just a second while I have a quick sip. Oh, I love cocktail night. So the next chapter is on birds. And it's interesting what she wrote in the introduction to this chapter. She wrote, "A chain of events. Lewis and I met a sympathetic American couple while on a coach tour in New Zealand. After our return to England, we received a little parcel from Seattle, which contained 2 muslin cloths, each of which had a tiny bird printed on one corner. These sparked me off, and I made similar birds on separate rugs so that they could be hung in a variety of ways." And then she says, "For my Christmas card that year was a photograph of these rugs, one above the other, just like this. And very soon after the festivities, our friend Mark Hurld, who wrote the introduction to this book, rang up to ask me if they were for sale. He has them hanging among," I was thinking that too. Are they still for sale? He has them hanging. Good for Mark. He has them hanging among many other treasured possessions, and the chain of events goes from there. I call them unknown birds, because not being a bird expert and assuming that they are American, I don't know their species." Interesting. I don't either. I mean, do you think the bottom one is a robin? He's got a lot of spots on top of him, doesn't he? Could be that they are imaginary birds. But I just looking at these two, I just love the colors, right? That really is it. That's it, isn't it? Have you noticed, because look at the top and the bottom, the backgrounds. Have you noticed that Louisa does a lot with a neutral white shade that is there's several, very sort of creamy, bluey lilac, the lightest value reads as like a creamy white. And then she's got the lightest value of like a pinky parchment color. She's got the lightest value of like a true like spilled milk color. She's got them all mixed together, and they are such amazing pastels. This would, for us in the US, we often see a background with these colors as a marble cake background. She does it with this circle pattern. She's big on patterning, right? Remember, that's an important part of the story here. She's big on patterning, and she's got very different colors on the top and bottom. I think she has just as many spots on the top in the white and the spring green as she does in the bottom with those icy, icy, icy blues and purpley grays. But because the ones on the top are white, there looks like there's more spots on the bottom. She's shown a little sprig, different sprig in each branch. These are just extraordinary. Mark, if you ever watch this, I am so jealous of your... These are so beautiful. These are my favorites so far. They are so charming. They're gentle. They have that country feel. The bird backgrounds are delicious, Wendy says. Absolutely. Dominique says, the light and shadows are amazing of the Greek one before. I think that's what the one you commented on Totally, totally amazing. So this whole chapter is on birds. You get a lot of beautiful birds, like the ones we just saw. This is a swimming duck from 2018. This is 25 by 29, and she talks a little bit about where she lives in York, and talks about a little pond or pool where the ducks are. So there's text that go with all of these. I'm looking at some amazing pages. But again, a lot of you have ordered the book tonight, and I know a lot of you will when you watch this later. Sorry, I just have to show you this one from a distance because I don't have the slide in it. But Gaggle of Geese, are you kidding me? I mean, there are so many good ones. It was just impossible to check. I basically just did blindfold, and because they're all phenomenal. And the next chapter is on Japan, Fuji. So this is interesting because she talks in the introduction about uh, how Lewis and she, Louisa, were invited to show their work at a harvest festival, which took place in an English garden 250 miles west of Tokyo. So she talks about how that all played out and walks us into. Let me see which one I have for our next. Okay, so the first few I don't. Okay, this one is called Aspects of Fuji, number 3, 2004. And she says, we stayed near Mount Fuji for 4 nights. And then I'm skipping a bunch. And then she says, on our very last day before our journey home, we visited an exhibition which took our breath away and was an inspiration. Kaz, I hope you're still listening. And was the inspiration for my next 7 rugs. It was a large display of kimonos shown in the form of flat panels in a gallery, purpose-built by the artist, whose name was, Ichiku Kabuta. This was a man who, having spotted listen to this part, this is crazy, a man who, having spotted a fragment of textile work in a museum, devoted his whole life to trying to rediscover the forgotten textile dye technique called, I think it's called Sujigahana. Sorry. He had countless failures and disappointments through a long period of war and poverty, and eventually, at the age of 60, he found and developed these hidden skills, produced a quantity of kimonos, and finally achieved world recognition. Lewis and I were impressed by this story, as well as his kimonos, as he spent 6 years as a prisoner of war in Siberia, largely digging graves in the frozen soil for his less hardy friends. What a story. What a man. So it's so interesting to think in Kaz. I just want to let you know that the kimonos that you got me in Japan, I have them, and I'm saving them for a special project. I don't think I thanked you enough for them because I love them so much. Obviously, that reminds me of this piece because Louisa was so inspired by the story of the kimonos and then went on to do her next, what did she say, 6 or 7 projects based on what she saw at this museum. This is just another extraordinary piece, using silhouette, using patterning, dividing up parts of the composition, patterning it out, many of the same color, lots of yellows in one bit, lots of reds in one bit, right? Same technique, different continent. And those beautiful black tweedies with the dashes and dots, right? It's all, I love them, Kaz. I love them so much. Kaz says, very different view of Mount Fuji. Gretty says, ducks are adorable. So it's so diverse, the work in this book, isn't it? That's really the thing. It is just, there's so many different things to look at. This is Aspects of Fuji, number 5, 2004. So this looks like, I don't know anything about Mount Fuji. It looks like a little snow on the top, but maybe it's often there, this snow, because of the altitude. Such a sharp and recognizable piece. Certainly seeing the clouds right in front of it give you a sense of the altitude, right? So, so high up. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Kaz, you should write to her and see if any of our Mount Fujis are still available. She writes right back. She's so good with writing. And by the way, I told her we were doing the show tonight. Of course, she's in the UK, so she's 6 hours ahead. But she was very happy that I'd be sharing this book. She was very happy that people would be looking at it and learning about it. She wrote such a nice email. Such a nice woman. So this is just another extraordinary piece. This whole chapter, again, is about, sorry, I'm struggling with technology, is Japan and Mount Fuji. Whole series. April says, gorgeous work in this book. It is absolutely amazing what you can create with discarded clothing. It absolutely is, isn't it? And there's a whole chapter of still lifes. I have always said I love still life, particularly in rug hooking. Depending on the subject, sometimes still lifes can be, big yawners, but a good still life is a thing to behold. This is Silver Jug, and this was done in 1999, 37 by 31. I think I had the still life paintings of William Nicholson. Oh my God. At the back of my mind when I hooked this rug. I have always admired the way he treated silver. I polished my old silver jug and accepted my own challenge to paint it in this medium. It came out so great, didn't it? Just, and I can just see or feel the way that Louise's mind is thinking here. Patterning, right? A silver jug, the more polished it is, it's another surface to be able to create more patterning, right? And it's such an odd pattern too. It's never going to be symmetrical, right? Because it's like round and it's mimicking the things across the room and the lights and the darks in very sharp contrast. But man, these diagonal stripes leading out, right? A little bit of shadow done in striping, this wild striped background in blues and grays, that simple red outline, the poison, the red outline, right? And then outside of the outline, look at the breakdown. Let me enlarge this. Let me pull this back out again. I just love her borders. I just love her borders. You see what she's doing here with the little triangle and then working away from it? Kelly says, so far I'm loving all of them, but the cat in the linen closet, oh, that was little old Rosie. That was the first rug. Just amazing. Just amazing. So there is a whole chapter on still lifes. This is after Winifred. So after one of Winifred's paintings, 2019. There's a couple on this page. I'm just showing you one. She said, these two after Winifred rugs were unashamedly copied, though not at all accurately, from photographs of Winifred Nicholson's paintings. These paintings are, this one is red geraniums, circa 1920s. Absolutely beautiful. Illustrated in the exhibition catalog, Winifred Nicholson, published by Kettle's Yard, University of Cambridge, 2001. So absolutely beautiful. And this is we've seen her experimenting with the sort of Tiffany glass frame, right? Like a broken frame that looks not perfectly measured. That gives it that great charm, but like rectangles, right? At this time, she's showing us the same frame, but instead of having the dark outlining, it's the white outlining. And these beautiful, cheerful curtains, right? The spotted bright blue and white curtains, so clean and tidy, so cheery, looking out at a perfect day, right? The beautiful kind of symbolism in one pot not having yet bloomed, the other having bloomed. The distant sky, using all of Louise's tricks, right? She's using her bag of tricks here. More solid border than we sometimes see with her, but it is great to see. Remember, she's working on from a photograph too, so probably trying to emulate some of the effects and the stylization of Winifred's in this piece. But another absolutely stunning piece. Here, let me come to this one in a second. Judy says, it's so wonderful to see a book of this quality from an artist who is still actively creating. So often we don't discover these treasures until they're gone. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true. It is so good and important to celebrate artists who we love and who we know that we have inherited so much information, inspiration, people who have furthered this craft. It is so good to let them know in their lifetime by writing and saying, God, I just found out about you. I love your work. She would love to get that email, right? You can find her email address online to get the book, right? Because then she'll hear from the publisher, oh, it was so weird. We sold a lot of books last night, right? Good feedback, right? Well-deserved good feedback. And yes, within someone's lifetime is preferable. Not everybody wants to Van Gogh it, It's good to let people know how much you care about their work and how much their work means to you when they can still hear it. Naturebound says she often has a pop of red in several of these. She does. This is no exception. Let me find the chapter where this one is. Okay, so this is in the next chapter that's called English Landscapes. It was a windy day when we picked our way among the grassy tussocks on the footpath which ran along the Norfolk coast. We saw seals and picked samphire, I don't know what that is, samphire, which we ate with Cromer crabs for tea. I began this rug as soon as I got home, while the scene was fresh in my memory. Norfolk Holiday, 1994, 33 by 43, private collection. It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It looks like England, doesn't it? It's like that kind of turbulent, sort of threatening sky. Beautiful layers of cloud, beautiful layers of blue, the sea, the air, the distant sort of islandy formations, little grassy caps on them, a little bit of that brown shoreline leading out. Looks like people in a boat, maybe rowing or pushing, I think pushing the boat out to get into it, maybe out of the shallow water into the inlet. Absolutely just beautiful. It's just beautiful. Let me open this one up a little bit too. I'm keeping my eye on the time because I know we're kind of right there. Not yet, but we will be soon. Hang on, I'm doing some stupid stuff. Doing some stupid stuff that is not helping us with time. There we go. Let me pull this one open a little bit because I just want to look at what's going on. I just want to look at the frame a little bit. Oh yeah. Oh wow. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean that is all patterned wool. That is all patterned wool. And it's so similar in color, blues and browns, to the sky, to the whole piece. Ooh, now that green really stands out, doesn't it? My mom says, be sure to click thumbs up for Deanna and Ribbon Candy Hooking. Thank you, Mom. Oh, Kelly, thank you. This is just yet another kind of border, right? Yet another kind. It's just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. It is just exquisite, this work. And it is not done, right? She's making the point, it's not done in the super fine way. She uses wider strips and her words, more rugged. It's so good. It's so good. I feel like overturning the table, but I mean, I still have this on the table, so I can't do that yet. It's so good. It's crazy. Louisa's work. I mean, also the drink, but mostly Louisa's work. So we're in the chapter with English landscapes. This one, she's got two of these on the same page in different seasons. She likes to do a series, and that is interesting. I love a good series. I love looking at a good series. This is called A Cottage in Dorset, Autumn, 1995, 34 by 56. And she talks a little about when she was staying in this little cottage. She was making drawings of it with a rag rug in mind. Once you get your book, you will be able to read all of these little personal bits. This is her memory museum, right? This is her memory museum. Oh, Kelly, you wrote, I'm sorry, I missed it, off to Portugal tomorrow for 5 weeks. Oh, Kelly, we'll buy the book when I get home. Have a wonderful month. Oh my gosh, cat's out of the bag. I'm so happy for you. Kelly, travel safely, have fun, take pictures, do a Louisa and gather everything for your memory museum. You might take pictures. She didn't take pictures. Remember, she just would get a postcard in the local town, just enough to jog her memory without it kind of becoming too literal. So sometimes she works from photos, but at least in the chapter where she traveled in Europe, she said she really didn't. She worked from memory, but then she got postcards for a little extra help. Kelly, have fun, safe travels. Can't wait to see what you do when you get home. I can't wait to see what you work on when you're off. Now let's see. Oh, this must be another. Hold on, let me find this one. I'm telling you, there's so much in this book. This is an enormous book. Estuary from the Air, 2012, 32 by 36. This is a rug which I must have worked on very quickly, as I only have the faintest memory of the process. I think it went very easily, and I was finished before I had fully absorbed it. I'm afraid I've forgotten where the estuary is. I expect I worked initially from a photograph. Interesting. Yeah, because she works fast. She gives some of her rugs to her friends. She sells some of her rugs. She keeps some of her rugs. And she's done over 200 rugs, right? Not counting the tea cozies and the small bits. This is absolutely beautiful. Look at all of the techniques that we've been talking about in this episode, and you see that they're present here. Anita, great to see you. You see that they're all present here. And again, how is it possible that she is using the same techniques from, she's not pulling the rug out and surprising us with anything, but each rug, I know, Anita, I know you meant ruggers, but each rug is so different. And again, here, Summer Landscape 2019. This was taken from a detail of one of Winifred Nicholson's paintings from an exhibition catalog. Northrig Hill. The painting is called Northrig Hill, 1926. Absolutely beautiful. And you see the frame again. I'm sorry, this one it slunk down a little bit. Let me fix that. You see the frame again, that kind of light framed sort of Tiffany pieced border. And the other one that was like this was looking out the kitchen window, the geraniums, right? And it also had the same border, I think, in the same colors. Interesting. I wonder if the border is in the paintings. I wonder. Interesting, because now I associate this broken border, not exactly geometric, sort of organically pieced stained glass border. Now I'm associating that with Louisa. I'm going to have to look at these original paintings and just do a reference for myself. Uh-oh. New chapter. This is the animals chapter. Danak, my cousin, once removed, appointed me and Lewis as her executors. And on her death, we moved into her flat in Bath. Oh, I love Bath. And set about trying to sort things out. One of her many interests seemed to be armadillos, as there were pictures and ornaments of these creatures all over the place. While clearing her wardrobe out and drawers, I conceived the idea of collecting sustainable clothing and making an armadillo rug in her memory. Oh, God, is that the most beautiful thing? Armadillo 2001, 28.5 by 31 inches. This is at the Whitworth, at the Museum of Manchester. God, that's beautiful, isn't it? So Tweety. You know, it's so Tweety. There's not a lot of contrast between the animal and the background, but that makes it more mysterious. And the animal is so odd of a shape that we immediately recognize it and we can pick it out easily. Look at the rust that she's using to kind of line the shape of the ears. Just the posture of it is just so good, isn't it? The rocks that the armadillo seems to be like on, right? She's planting him on this little bit of earth. That's the only part of the composition that's stable, is the earth immediately under the armadillo. The rest is like blitzed out with lines and movement, and very similar colors. It's interesting because it is a creature that's a bit, what is this? Is this like is an armadillo like in the kangaroo family? Is he one of those pouch animals? No, he's not, is he? Because he rolls himself in a ball. What kind of an animal is an armadillo? Such a weird little guy, but very lovable, right? They are super lovable. They are so cute. We pet them at the zoo. They've allowed us, they allow you to go into their cage and pet them, and they just walk around. I guess if they weren't used to it, they would roll into their own armature and whatever. But absolutely, I mean, he's fully armored, this little guy, and he's really a little bit darker than his background surroundings. Incredibly, he stands out remarkably well, considering that the tonal values are quite similar. He stands out remarkably well. He's well rooted onto those little bits of rock. The fact that everything else is moving makes a very exciting composition. The breakdown and the outlining in his body and his little toes and his little ears, the tip of his nose and in his scaly tail, absolutely beautiful. They are mammals, okay. Pam says, but so strange looking. It is a great rug. We see a lot of rugs with, for example, goats and sheep. Never seen an armadillo. It's just exquisite, isn't it? Absolutely love that. Remember the armadillos in Florida that we see when we were driving at night? I do. That was a weird sight that year that my dad thought he was Hemingway and he moved our family to Florida from New England. That was something, wasn't it? We only stayed for 1 year. Not that I don't like Florida, but it was like I was a junior in high school. It wasn't ideal. But yeah, I remember that. That was fun. There was a lot of creatures there that I could have lived without inside the house, like scorpions. And those little anal things or whatever they're called that do push-ups all the time. It was a totally different world. I'm ready to go back now. It's been a long time. It's been a long time because I just turned 52. Oh dear. So yeah, there's an animal chapter. You'll see in the tiger, the goat. There's some beautiful rugs in that chapter. And then she goes to a chapter that's called Tree Seasons. I'm just going to give you a glimpse, right, of the larger picture. make you want this book even more, right? So I'm only showing you one of these here, and it's a really pretty example. It's the third one. I think this must be the autumn one. Absolutely beautiful movement of the leaves, the color, right? Very different composition, but again, the same energy, the same movement. Oh gosh, we have a lot left. Let me keep going. Let me keep going. I don't. We don't have to go through all of them either. I just want you. Ooh, look at the shadows. Right, we were talking about the shadows before. Um, Incredible. Oh, these are. I think that's still the tree chapter. There is another chapter after that. Yes, this chapter, Orkney, the Orkney Islands. Right. So then this is a whole chapter in and of itself. This is called Orkney Shore 2011. Beautiful movement, another great God's eye view looking down, things broken up into layers, using that diagonal thrust again. Same game plan with the colors. Great mix of, don't you want to just go out? I don't know what time it is where you are, but I want to go out first thing in the morning to the thrifty shops and start hoarding the tweed and patterned wools that I never pick up because they're brown. Right? I feel like hoarding them now because those are the tweets that Louisa uses a lot. She's not doing, what we do in the US, like, oh, over dye me something in pink or green. No, she's using these straight up patterned wools that are browns and neutral colors. And she is killing it with the color palette using those, right? I mean, it's just remarkable. Yeah, Kirsten says, yes, I'm going shopping tomorrow. Oh my gosh. My mom's remembering back to Florida saying, yes, the suction cup frogs would attach themselves to the windows in our dining room and a scorpion on my bedroom wall when I woke up one morning. Scorpion under my bed when I twisted my ankle jumping on the trampoline to my Barry Manilow album, too. That was me. Man, came face to face with that thing. Florida. Florida was rough for us New England girls. Judy says, I am not squeamish about bugs, usually, but those things just slay me. If they weren't so addlepated, slapping you in the face, it would be a lot easier to get along without them. How funny. How funny. So obviously this is still the Orkney chapter. There are some, oh gosh, I'm flipping through some rugs that you're going to want to see. They are really um, incredible. The whole chapter is incredible. Orkney. Next chapter, sheep. Look at this example. Grazing sheep 2004. She says, I'm attracted to anything woolly, with the exception of apples or pears. When I first started combing the jumble sales for woolen articles, they were plentiful. Gradually, these sales were replaced by charity shops, and still one could gather a lot of woolly cast-offs. But now, alas, it is very rare to find a single article made from wool. And along with a lot of other people, I long for the time when those beautiful fleeces find their way back into the shops. There can be no better material for rag making. Woolen jumpers are soft, stretchy, and durable. I agree with you. I think Anne might agree with you too. Um, Hooking with sweaters is phenomenal. It just doesn't, for me, sweaters and pantyhose are my two favorite things because they're both stretchy. I like t-shirts too, but like sweaters and pantyhose are infinitely stretchy, and they don't become like super thin when you stretch them. Like pantyhose, it just snaps back, right? It makes these big, lofty, soft loops. Same thing with sweaters. And then you get to see all the little individual stitches in the sweaters. It's just incredible. The sheep are amazing. Gail says, love sheep. If you love sheep, Gail, you're going to love this one too. This is such a cute. She's got a few of the sheep's little faces peeking over the wall. You know how they come to you in a group like they're expecting something? A few sheep with dry stone walls, 2016, 30 by 30. Again, this is her border. So I think this might be a Louisa border because look at the border. Remember, I was just thinking, oh, is this a Winifred border or a Louisa border? I think it's a Louisa border. And she hasn't got it broken up with white in between, which I think is a good move because the white has to be reserved for the sheep's faces. My mom says, oh, too sweet. Yeah, those little inquiring minds want to know, have you got food? But yeah, she hasn't got that border broken up. It's all greens. So she's worked a lot of patterning into the background, a lot of dots and dashes, a lot of tweedy, very natural looking tweedy materials, right? Not over dyed colored materials. Feed me sheep. And then the solid border. And doesn't that work well with such a heavily patterned interior, main rug, and then to have a solid border? It really is extraordinary. Love the Tiffany framing. Me too. Kelly, I love it. I just love it. Oh, this is one that I showed you all four. Oh gosh, there's some more sheep that are just a killer. This is maybe from the York and Yorkshire. Yeah, this is from the York and Yorkshire chapter. Another amazing chapter. 4 seasons. So this is view over Roan Tree Park, autumn, spring, winter, and summer. The first three done in 1996 in summer, the bottom right, done in 1997. And she talks a little bit about it being their former home, her and Lewis. Um, Absolutely beautiful. And when you have the book in your hand, you can really admire the hooking, the border, the way the border is hooked differently in each one of these. It just kills me. It just kills me. It's just extraordinary. This is such a quaint scene. Wait a minute, let me get. I'm still going through pages here. This is, I think, still the York chapter. Yep, Winter in York Cemetery. She's got more in this series. This is from 2013, 23 by 28. So York Cemetery, but just a beautiful view in the snow, right? Lots of neutrals, bit of a moody sky with blues and bluish greens, but the patterning on the gravestones, right? The dashes and dots in pink and red in the snow, that big red sun again on the horizon peeking out, and that beautiful silhouette of a cross, right? Really sets the mood. It's just gorgeous. We're right at the end now. So oh my gosh, you should see what I'm looking at. The last chapter, it might not be the last chapter. It's hard to tell. More cats. So, Kirsten, this is a book for you. 12 Cats, 1998, 47 by 58, right? At the end of the book, it's kind of like she's putting in some more bits and pieces that we might not have seen yet. Oh, this looks like Rosie again. Oh, there's so many cats at the back. No, this is Murphy, 1995. She says, of all the cats that passed through our hands when we were growing up, Murphy was the gentlest, the handsomest, and the most endearing. He was the one that our mother most admired. He would sit on a cupboard on the breadboard, gazing at us as we ate our meals at the kitchen table, just looking amiable. My mother was at home alone when he was hit and killed by a car. He was never mentioned. None of us referred to him, as we knew that this was our mother's way of coping with loss. But he must have remained in her memory as he has in mine. Oh, God, that's so sad. A friend, I can't read the rest. A friend took a photograph of him. Okay, I can't read the rest. Uh, Beautiful tribute at the end to poor old Murphy. Oh my God, he looks like such a sweetheart, doesn't he? Great abstract backing here. And this is the most detailed border I've seen. It's so beautiful. His body fill is really exceptional, right? It's very piecey. It's exceptional. There's a very neutral fill in what looks like the window or curtain shapes behind him. I don't know if you can tell, but the background, that dark sort of marble cake of a background, is many different materials, including lots of tweeds. Beautiful patterning, elaborate patterning. Kind of a quilty pattern in the squares, the textile that Murphy's sitting on, and then that border is just fabulous. It's just an absolutely beautiful piece, and there are a few more images in the book, and then bibliography, breakdown of all of the places that she's exhibited, and at the end, this last image, work in progress, November of 2022. Just beautiful. So for us as hookers, it's interesting to look at pieces like this. The scissors give scale too. Does anybody else have these scissors? I have these exact scissors. April says, her work really shows me how much borders matter. They are beautiful. It's so true. We don't always put borders on our work. I rarely put borders on my work. She's always putting narrow borders, but they are meaningful. And they are all sort of enabling the picture, right? If they're not for naught, they all have meaning and weight, and they work in tandem with the picture. So, I mean, it's just incredible, but isn't this a great window into how she works? With cut up pieces, you get the scale with the hook and the scissors, and she's just filling in the burlap background. I mean, it's just, look at that. I wonder if she hand cuts. I think she must, Kelly. I think she must. She doesn't seem like the kind of person who would fool around with a cutter, And the just very nature of rag rugs is that they are like imperfect materials cut up, as she put it earlier in the introduction. She said like ribbons of fabric, that she cut up ribbons of fabric, and I think she is cutting them with scissors. It's just it's an extraordinary body of work. Again, this is what the book looks like. It's also right here behind me. And if you joined us later in the episode, tonight we've been looking at this book and the work of Louisa Creed. And this is a new book that came out very recently called My Rag Rug Life. It comes from England, so you have to get ready for the shipping. It is what it is. It is so worth it. This is a thick book, right? It's this kind of size. It's a soft cover, beautifully done with the flaps on both sides, right? The flap is here too. So you've got kind of built-in bookmarks on the front and back. Nice thick book, 130 some odd pages, lots of memoir, the story of her life and her hooking. Remember at the beginning how she said, she sits and she hooks and she thinks about her rugs and she thinks about the stories, right? This is the memory museum right here. We get to share it. Thank goodness that she wrote this, right? This is a lot of work. So, yeah, I just love this book. I just love it. So again, it is published by Rylett Press, and that is Rylett, www.rylettpress.com. And remember, again, if you joined us late, that Louisa wrote, when I emailed her, she wrote back and she said, if for some reason it appears to be sold out, which can happen at any press, that happens to me all the time with my books, write to, and she put the address, and I think it was jamiegillam1@gmail.com, but it's in the description to this show tonight. So you will certainly be able to, you will certainly, thank you, you will certainly be able to get a copy, right? You just write to him if there's an issue. And Louisa is there. She answered my email that I sent her last night. She answered it today. It was very good to hear from her. I really love this. I really love this book. I can't recommend it highly enough. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Let me just see if I missed anything. Look at that. I wonder if she hand cuts yet. Oh, thanks, Fiona. Love you too. Happy Friday night. It's our night, right? Have a great weekend to you all too. Let me just catch up with you really quick. I got so immersed in that. I can't think anymore. That's good, right? It's a good book if I completely lost all of my thoughts in my head. So Magpie Times. A lot of you have been asking about our new magazine, Magpie Times. Judy has already sent off for the prototype, the copy for us to look at. Make sure that the paperweight, the cover weight is good. So that is coming, I think, on Monday, and we will be able to look at that together. And she's in Washington, but she'll look at it. We'll Zoom, and she makes the calls on the magazine part of it. So the physical part, So we'll look at that, and then if it's good, we will put it into production. Our date was always cutoff date February 17 for content, and distribution date March 17, so 1 month out, which gave us a full month to fool with the content. So that is still the goal. We'll figure out cost and all of the buying details before then. It's coming up very quickly now, but we gathered all of our stuff and we actually closed on February 17th, which wasn't that long ago. So she's been assimilating and all that is happening. For those of you who don't know, this is a new fiber arts magazine with a heavy emphasis on rug hooking that Judy and I are putting together called Magpie Times. You are always invited to send something in, your work, an article. We go by theme, and the theme for the theme for this issue is historic gardens. The theme for the next issue is midsummer magic. So if you have something, an article or gallery pictures to put in our gallery section that you think might fit the theme, we would love to have them. So please send them in to me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com and or to Judy at littlehouserugs@gmail.com. Littlehouse Rugs. No, I forgot. Her brand is littlehouserugs.com. If you want to write to her directly, go onto her site, littlehouserugs.com, and write to her. I'm ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. Either way, it's going to get to both of us. We both look at everything. So be thinking about that, because you are always invited to share your work, whether you are a beginner or not. We are always excited and happy to cheer for you, to look at your work, always, right? So something to think about. I have so much stuff coming up, I can't think, but I will be back with you. Thank you, Diane. I will be back with you on Monday for coffee time, and we'll figure out what we're doing then. we'll figure out our week next week too, because I start doing my once a month teaching at the Mount Sinai Hospital in Hartford this coming week. I think that's Thursday, so that shouldn't affect us. Yeah, I'll figure out the schedule for this week, but I will certainly be with you on Monday. I hope you enjoyed tonight. Happy weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend. And I will see you Monday at for coffee time at noon Eastern Standard Time. And again, all the information about this book is in the description of this video tonight. Happy weekend. Thank you so much.